Hey there, this is Swan Rose from the Garden of Eons, and I have a story to share. So, a lot of you who know me may know that I am a non-dualist, or someone who prescribes to the concept of unity consciousness. I really love putting my mind in the place of thinking that everything is one, there's really no separation between anything. And there are paradoxes to being in form and reality, of course. So, of course, on some level, it's going to be looking like there is separation, but on some levels of reality, there's not. And unity is the truth. And I love putting my mind into that place of unity. And with that context, I go on to share that recently something was brought to my attention by the woman who adopted my son. And she told me that she believes that I am a spiritual narcissist. And I respect her words, so I got to thinking, wow, she thinks that I'm a spiritual narcissist. And I'm gonna let this car go by. Now, I believe in unity, and I believe that whenever we are traumatized, our consciousness becomes fragmented, and there are splits within our consciousness, and there are different parts of us that form as a result of that split. And those different parts start to develop their own egos as a way to protect the central being that we are. And I learned some years ago a method of noticing these splits, also known as fragmentations in the consciousness, and not just noticing them, but also a healing practice to integrate, to reconnect the parts of ourselves that split off with the whole of us, so there's like really no separation anymore in like within our ego. And a lot of people have a lot of splits in their ego, in their consciousness, and don't even really know it. But one way that we can know for sure that there's a split going on that likely was created by trauma in our life is whenever we have very conflicting ideas existing within us at the same exact time about any given topic or any given thing. So like, for instance, if you're like, well, I really like this person, but there's another part of me that doesn't like this person, or if there's literally anything that you could say that's like, there's a part of me that feels this way, and there's a part of me that feels another way, that is a very obvious way to tell that you have a split created by trauma on that topic. And so it's great because there's these really easy telltale signs that this split has been created on any given topic, or like within any area of our life. And then not only am I kind of versed in noticing these splits, but I'm also versed in a integration therapy that is really, really great at integrating these parts and kind of sewing and stitching them back up so that they can all come back into the unity of who we really are, on a divine level, on a unity level. And so whenever this lady told me that she thinks that I am a spiritual narcissist, I also referred to my concept of unity in this idea that, this is really out there, and I challenge myself on this all the time, but I really like to live my life this way. Like, if a person tells me something about myself, that person is another aspect of me. So I hold myself accountable to doing the due diligence of self-reflection and looking at how what they said, number one, could be true, or number two, could be true to a fragmented aspect of my consciousness that in theory is me, but it's a fragmented part of my ego that was created by trauma in an effort to protect myself through that traumatic situation that has never been integrated. So it's just like hanging out in my ego and my consciousness, and it will come up whenever we're feeling safe enough in our life to heal, literally. That's when it'll come up. And so this lady told me that she thinks that I'm a spiritual narcissist. And I was like, wow, interesting food for integration. Thank you. I did some journaling on it, and part of me wanted to just like completely bypass what she said and be like, fuck no, like, but the more central part of me that loves to be accountable was like, something is really like hitting a chord there that is pretty loud, and like I really want to go down whatever rabbit hole is there of like integration and reclaiming my whole awareness and consciousness. So this shit is not easy. Sitting down to be like, I'm going to reflect upon this fragmented aspect of me and see what it has to say so that I can like fully love it and fully embrace it and ask it if it's ready to like integrate back into the fullness of my consciousness, so that I don't have to keep living out the trauma and drama of what fragmented it, or essentially, yeah. So yeah, or like whatever accelerators are bringing it back into my conscious awareness that this is a split part of my consciousness. Anyways, so I sat down, like, I don't know, I journaled about it, and like a couple days later, because when I do this, what is called parts work, these parts of us that become the fragmented parts of us that become broken based on trauma, become broken off of our consciousness because of trauma to protect us in that moment, but typically last until it's integrated. So I've also heard parts work. There's another modality called internal family systems that has been described to me that sounds very similar to parts work, although I don't know everything about internal family systems, and I believe there's like a couple other modalities that do similar things, but I really, really like parts work. I learned it from Teal Swan, literally just from an instructional video that she shared like 10 years ago on YouTube, and I'm gonna link 2 videos that she has on this process in the comments here if you want to try. I can't recommend it enough. Excuse my burp. Now, yeah, so when I notice something that I want to do this integration work with, I typically plan it out. It's not something I can do immediately because it is a lot of work, and I know I need to dedicate like at least a half hour, but usually when I do this, I like to do like an hour to like 2 to 3 hours, because it is so therapeutic, and I love giving that to myself. Like, I love reclaiming my wholeness so much. Now, I sat down to do parts work on after my journaling because I needed to reflect on it a little bit and like prepare for the parts work. So I narrowed down that, because truthfully, like as a, like the more like central part of me, like I didn't really agree with her that I am spiritually narcissistic. But I'll come back to that because I did end up finding parts of me that were behaving narcissistically, but like in my journaling, I was like, it's hard for me to like fully agree, especially in the situation that we were talking about. It was really hard for me to fully agree that I actually was behaving spiritually narcissistically. And what I narrowed down in my journaling was that there is a part of me who believes that I am a spiritual narcissist. Because that's what she was coming at me with. She was saying, I believe you're a spiritual narcissist. And so I took that as a mirror. I was like, there is a part of me that believes that I am a spiritual narcissist. And that is the part that I sat down with. The part of me that believes that I am a spiritual narcissist. I believe that is an aspect of me that was created through various traumas after I was doing the work on this. Now, I'm not going to go all like into the traumas, but there was one really, really potent like realization when I was doing this work that I do want to share that is like very specific. And it's like, it's wild because there's so much about like our early childhood that like can get swept under the rug and like made to seem like it's not a big deal. And if it weren't for this modality, I wouldn't really have thought about this. But there was something that came up when I was working with the part of me that believes that I'm a spiritual narcissist. There's a really big coach bus that just went by. Okay, yeah. So there was, going back into my memory during the parts work, and I'm going to link the instructional video for parts work for you in the description of this video so that you can check it out for yourself, because I so recommend this practice. But it is hard work, just like know that, like genuinely it's hard, but it gets easier. It's like, it's a skill that you can build. Anyways, I went back to like literally like my mother being in her womb, or my mother being in the womb. Oh my god, there's so many loud cars. And it's so funny that just these like fast cars were going by because my mother, I literally like these memories were literally imprints going so far back as my mom being in the womb and like feeling rushed and like she didn't have the time and space to be who she really is. and that imprint coming upon me, and then compounding this memory and this feeling of what would continue on to eventually be named the part of me that believes that I'm a spiritual narcissist, is a moment, actually multiple moments. When I was a toddler, my parents were separated, and I would go to my dad's house every other weekend sometimes, and he would be sleeping. He would be asleep, and I would be awake as a young child. I was not a developed human being. I was a toddler, and I so significantly, I have vivid memories of going into a room in his house that had a poster of Darth Maul from Star Wars. This poster had a large image of the Star Wars character Darth Maul, who is like all this red. He's red, and he has these like all these little spikes on his head. He's like creepy. He's like typical like renditions of like the devil. Like when I was that young, I was like, that is the devil on the wall. And it was scary when I was that young. My dad was asleep. There was no one else there. And Darth Maul is staring at me from way up on the wall. And as I'm doing this parts work recently, the information that part of me was relaying to me, like speaking, like literal words, like I'm speaking to myself, but it's that part of me speaking to the central version of me. What it was saying was that all the way back since my mom was in the womb, and especially compounded by that experience of looking at Darth Maul on the wall, I got the impression that I am very, very bad. I think because that Darth Maul character, as a toddler, I was so impressionable. Our brains are so impressionable. We learn from our environments and the people around us. And there was this like humanoid, freaky ass, creepy ass, devil looking dude on the wall, and there was no one else around. And I was just staring at that as a toddler. I think I was like just frozen in fear, staring at that on the wall like multiple times as a toddler. And I got the impression, because we get impressions from people around us about who we are at that age especially, I got the impression that I was really, really bad. I'm not saying that's true about me, but that's the impression that I got. And that part of me decided, first of all, it was fragmented from my central core being. And like the paradox is real. Like there are different densities of consciousness. So there's a density where this fragmentation is possible, even though at a more core level, unity is the truth. But there are densities where fragmentation is allowed, basically. And that's part of our free will choice as conscious creators in reality, is to go through this kind of process. So this fragmented part of me developed this idea that it's really, really bad, because I don't know, like back when I was my mom in the womb, she must have thought she was really, really bad. And like, that imprint just kind of stayed. And then it was reflected, it was like resurfaced in this experience I had as a toddler where, yeah, there was moles on the wall. I'm like, that's me, like, I must be bad, because my toddler brain doesn't know how to, I talk in spirals sometimes. So, let me get back to what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, all of that is what I was saying. Oftentimes, we will sabotage our lives by thinking that we're bad in some way, and it is like so unconscious. So for this woman to come to me and be like, I think you're a spiritual narcissist, I was like, I want to look at that. And I didn't know that it was going to come to this point where I realized that this part of me that thinks that which I've integrated this part of me now. So like, you're talking to a like central swan who is like way more integrated. But back then, I had a fragmented part of my being, of my consciousness, that thought that I'm really, really bad. And that was a way to protect myself from, I don't even know what, honestly. What the fuck was I even like trying to protect? I don't know. That's a good question. But I would act in certain ways that would emphasize the idea that I am really, really bad. And I've come such a far way from who I was at a certain point in my life that it has had taken on a very, like, refined view and behaviors. But a lot of it looked like just keeping myself small, not allowing myself to move in bigger ways. I think a lot of this started to arise out of my own prayer to heal my divine masculine self, my divine masculine self, and come into alignment with my highest financial success, because there's no way that I could align with and like be living my highest financial success if I believe that there's a part of me that is bad. Like, I just don't believe that that's true. I believe that there are behaviors that are harmful, but I don't believe that any being in themselves is bad. And like, I'm so thankful for this integration. And I have to mention that in the modality of parts work, there is this component of it that honors the idea that for every fragmented part of our psyche, there's a complete opposite part of the psyche that forms at the same time. So while there was that part of me that was created that was saying, I'm very bad, I'm very bad, I'm very bad, there was a completely opposite side of me that was saying, I'm very good, I'm very good, I'm very good. And sometimes these opposites don't even really know about each other. Sometimes they do know about each other, and they're like, no matter what, they're conflicting. And it really, really hinders a person being able to take the next steps in their journey. It really, really hinders a person being able to use as much of their energy as possible. I mean, yeah, it hinders a person from moving forward in the ways that really are like their highest and most successful versions. because there is energy being spent with these opposing sides fighting with each other, either consciously or unconsciously. So that's one of the reasons that I value this integration work so much, because the more that I'm able to integrate, and I want to speak this to you as well, like the more that we are able to integrate these opposing fragments of our consciousness and like just bring them back into ourselves. And if you watch the instructional video on parts work, that will make a lot more sense. But the more that we're able to integrate them back into the wholeness of our being, the more energy, the more life force we have to be our central version and put our energy forth in a more integrated whole manner to actualize ourselves. Like, if there's anything I could say in this whole message, like, that is it. It is that when we have opposing fragmented parts of our consciousness that are fighting with each other, that's energy that we are not able to spend on like our forward momentum, basically. And so I'm so thankful for this lady, my son's adopted mom, telling me that she thought that I am a spiritual narcissist. And this sparked me like literally doing like so much integration work for like days and days following that, on like, oh yeah, I noticed that thing like a couple months ago or something, like I wanted to like do parts work on that. Like finally I'm feeling safe enough in my reality to do this work again. Like I'll go through like spirals of like the spiral path is like that, like we're not always just like moving in a circle, we're like moving in a spiral. So we come back around to certain things in our lives, and like hopefully we're doing the work, and when we come back around to it, we're at like a higher vibration, and like we're experiencing like higher expressions of these experiences. So I come back around to doing this integration work in my life, and I'm so thankful for that. But like not only did I get to do work on that particular aspect of me, and like once I was like sitting with these aspects of me, and I was like explaining to them like who I am now, and like, hey, you know, like we can integrate, and like you can use all your energy to like really feel like the truth of who I really am. And like these beings, these like parts of my consciousness were like, oh yeah, we want to like dive into the abyss of who you really are, like let's transmute, we're down to transmute. And it was so fucking awesome, and I've been doing that now for like weeks. And God, I'm so fucking thankful. Like holy, like thank you.